When I was young, I dreamed of freedom. I dreamed of breaking chains. But as you get older, your choices narrow. So instead, I gave us an empire. But I knew exactly what I was doing.
Obviously, it centres around Catherine. Everything, the whole script, the whole story centres around Catherine. But there's also elements of, it's also about Russia and the landscape. So the landscape's very important to the series. And also the colour, the vibrancy, the wealth. It's all elements that we wanted to incorporate into the story. So it's how you approach that darkness and still show the opulence and the grandeur of Catherine's world and keep her centred. So there were lots of discussions about how we achieved that. We shot tests on lots of formats, lots of lenses, and we just kept going back to the LF as the way to go.
When I first came here from Germany, I did not even speak the language.
She's a very clever and well-read woman.
But I fell in love with this country. Its passion.
She loves a lot of things.
A lot of men.
I'm for expansion. I'm for empire.
Does she love anything apart from power?
Do you think she even likes men? She eats them and spits them out.
We looked at a lot of sort of Russian 17th, 18th century paintings, and it's not so much analysing details, it's an overall sense of how the painting makes you feel or how these images make you feel. And the LF and the DNA combination, we kept going back to that because it was giving us the same sense of what we were seeing in the paintings without being able to specifically point to one thing or another. I think one of the key things was, because everything's candlelit, you've got lots of point sources of light everywhere. There are candles all over the place, and what the DNAs did that was really interesting was the distortion. It was almost like an anamorphic distortion, of out of focus distortion of these point sources, and it suddenly made everything really organic and interesting as an image.
You are a very attractive man.
Coming from the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, that is indeed a compliment.
Come up to my private apartments. You may do whatever it is you think I want. But I will not share my throne with anyone.
I think what was great about the DNAs was they perform like old glass, but there's a much more consistent look to the lenses. Each lens gives you something different. 50mm is very much like a portrait lens. The centre's very sharp. We use the 29 a lot. It's almost got like a banding at the top and the bottom, almost like an anamorphic. And so really each shot dictated which lens we used. It forces you to put the camera in the right place for that particular lens for the shot. So you've got a lot less flexibility, but out of that limiting flexibility comes something more interesting. You're being forced to do something you wouldn't normally do, which as a cinematographer I think is always interesting. We developed a language for each lens and we used its strengths for particular shots.
I did what I did, and I wouldn't have had any of it any other way.
I think one of the great things about these lenses is the way they flare. The way they handle light. There was a lot of very odd optical artifacts, but that's what was great about them. You know, you're in these real locations, and you know, we're essentially in Russia, and the light's interesting. The winter light's interesting. We were shooting in November, so a lot of stuff was taking place dawn, dusk, twilight, you know, these kind of naturally beautiful light. And so I think flares are an organic part of that, and we were certainly trying to use that in the show.
I will not share my throne with anyone.